Clara Belle had never thought she would come to a place like Cedar Creek. It was a small town, dusty in summer and sleepy in winter, where everyone knew everyone else's business before breakfast. But Clara had reasons. She wanted a fresh start, a new life, and maybe, just maybe, a place where people saw her for who she was, not just her weight. Cedar Creek was known for its ranches. Big ones, rich ones, old ones. And the biggest name in town was Wyatt Kane. He owned the Kane Ranch, a stretch of land so large it could hide a small village, and he was as famous for his wealth as he was for being impossible to impress. People said he had a rule. He didn't marry fat girls. That rumor had traveled faster than the summer wind, and Clara had heard it, loud and clear. Still, she had a secret. One she had carried with her across 3 towns, 2 cities, and a dozen farmhouses. She could cook. Not just cook, but create. She could turn the simplest ingredients into magic, and she believed, maybe foolishly, that magic might be enough to get a chance in a town like Cedar Creek. The harvest fair was the perfect opportunity. Clara had spent hours preparing her dishes: a rich corn stew, sweet honey biscuits, a fruit tart that looked like a painted sunset. She had tied her hair back, tucked the apron tight, and walked toward the Kane Ranch table with a mix of nerves and hope. Wyatt Kane stood there, larger than life even in his simple work clothes, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, and with eyes that seemed to see everything and judge nothing. He looked at Clara and raised one eyebrow. "You're here to cook?" His voice was calm, but something in it made Clara's stomach twist. "Yes, sir," Clara said, standing tall. I hear you don't marry fat girls, but I can cook." Wyatt didn't laugh. Instead, he looked her over carefully, as if he was weighing her words against some invisible scale. "You think cooking changes that?" Clara smiled. "I think cooking can show who a person really is." There was a long pause. People gathered around, curious, whispering. Clara felt their eyes like little pokes, reminding her of every time she had been laughed at or underestimated. But she held her ground. She had survived far worse than a skeptical crowd. Wyatt finally nodded. "All right. Cook for my ranch hands. If they like it, maybe we'll talk." Clara felt a spark of hope. Not much, but enough to light her nerves on fire. She quickly set to work. The ranch kitchen was bigger than any she had seen, but it smelled of sweat, leather, and hay. Not a smell that inspired baking or delicate sauces. But Clara didn't panic. She washed her hands, laid out her ingredients, and began. The first thing she did was roast the vegetables. She chopped, stirred, and seasoned with care. Every movement was deliberate. She hummed a tune she hadn't sung in years, a little melody her grandmother used to sing when the family cooked together. Slowly, the kitchen filled with the rich, warm smells of roasting vegetables, simmering stew, and fresh dough baking. The ranch hands started gathering. They were a rough-looking bunch, covered in dust and sweat, but Clara didn't see roughness, she saw hungry people. And food, she believed, was the fastest way to anyone's heart. When the first tray of biscuits came out, the ranch hands paused. The smell made their eyes widen. Wyatt leaned closer, arms crossed, observing silently. "This smells like Sunday mornings," one of the men said, a grin breaking across his face. Clara smiled. "I hope it tastes as good as it smells." It did. By the time the stew was ready, everyone was laughing, talking, and passing plates around. Clara watched from the corner as Wyatt finally allowed himself a small smile. Not big, not obvious, but it was there. At the end of the meal, Wyatt approached her. "Not bad," he said, flatly. "You handled the kitchen and the men better than I expected. Most people would have given up halfway through." Clara felt her chest swell. "Thank you, sir. I like challenges." Wyatt's eyes narrowed slightly, but there was no anger in them. "Then I have a challenge for you." Clara straightened. "Yes?" "You live on the ranch for 1 week. You'll run the kitchen, handle the meals, and keep everyone happy. If you can do that, maybe you'll earn my respect." And maybe more. Clara blinked. A week? At Kane Ranch? With Wyatt Kane? It sounded impossible. But then, nothing that mattered in life was easy. She nodded. I accept. Wyatt turned and walked away, leaving her with the ranch hands. They cheered softly, impressed by her bravery. Clara smiled, feeling a strange warmth. This was it, the moment where her life might change. The first morning on the ranch was chaos. Chickens ran underfoot. Pots clanged. And the ranch hands were already hungry. Clara moved quickly, setting fires under the stoves, organizing ingredients, and giving gentle directions. She realized she had to think like the ranch hands, not just like a chef. She had to understand what made them happy, what made them comfortable, and what made them trust her. Wyatt observed from a distance. He didn't interfere, but he watched carefully. Clara caught him a few times, standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. She wondered if he believed she could last the week. She hoped he did, even if he didn't say it. By the third day, Clara had found her rhythm. She learned the men's favorite dishes, discovered shortcuts for efficiency, and even convinced Wyatt to try a new dessert. She had improvised a caramel apple cobbler with a touch of cinnamon. He took a bite silently, then nodded once. That single nod felt like a small victory. Clara also noticed that the ranch had its own kind of family. The men teased each other, helped one another, and laughed at small things no outsider would understand. She felt honored to be included, even as an observer at first, and slowly, she realized that she wasn't trying to impress just Wyatt Kane, she was trying to belong, in her own way. The nights were quieter. Clara would sit by the fire after the men went to bed, thinking about her life before Cedar Creek. She remembered the towns where people laughed at her, the kitchens where she had been told she wasn't cut out for anything, and the voices that said she didn't belong. Here, for the first time, she felt the tiniest thread of hope that maybe she could belong somewhere. By the sixth day, Clara had won over the ranch hands completely. They would sneak her extra ingredients, offer tips, and joke with her about the next meal. Even Wyatt had started to give her small compliments, never openly, but enough to let her know she was making an impression. On the last night of the trial, Clara decided to cook something special. She wanted a feast that would show everyone her heart as well as her skill. She baked bread with herbs, roasted vegetables in a honey glaze, and prepared a sweet tart for dessert. The kitchen smelled of warmth, comfort, and care, a combination that even the roughest ranch hand couldn't ignore. Wyatt walked in quietly, observing. Clara felt her heart race. The men gathered around the table, their eyes wide. The first bite was silence, then murmurs of delight. Clara watched their faces, hoping, wishing, and quietly proud of what she had achieved. When the plates were empty, Wyatt finally spoke. "You did well," he said. His voice was calm, but there was weight behind it. "Better than well. You've got skill, patience, and the kind of mind that can run this ranch. That's more than most people here ever show." Clara felt a lump in her throat. She had done it. She had met the challenge. Not just for Wyatt, not just for the men, but for herself. She had proven she belonged somewhere. Wyatt nodded once more and said, "We'll see what the rest of life brings, Clara Belle. But for now, you've earned a place here." As she cleaned up the kitchen that night, Clara couldn't help but smile. She had come to Cedar Creek to find a fresh start, and she realized she had found more than that. She had found respect, opportunity, and maybe, just maybe, a chance at something more than she had ever dared to hope for. The week had been hard, exhausting, and sometimes overwhelming. But Clara knew one thing for certain. She had faced the biggest challenge of her life, and she had won. And that was just the beginning. The morning sun rose slowly over Kane Ranch, painting the wide fields with gold. Clara Belle woke to the smell of fresh hay and the distant lowing of cows. She stretched, tied her apron, and prepared herself for another long day. The first week had been a challenge, but it had shown her that life on a ranch was not just hard, it was alive. Every sound, every movement, every breath was part of a rhythm she was learning to understand. Clara's first task was breakfast. The ranch hands were already gathered, eager for coffee and the first meal of the day. She moved with confidence, measuring flour, cracking eggs, and mixing batter for pancakes. She added a dash of cinnamon and a hint of vanilla, imagining the smell filling the wooden kitchen. When she placed the first plate in front of a ranch hand, his eyes widened, and a smile spread across his face. "This is really good," he said, almost in disbelief. "Better than my mama's." Clara laughed. "I'll take that as a compliment," she said. The men chuckled, and she felt a small glow of satisfaction. It was one thing to cook well at home, it was another to cook for a group of people who worked from dawn till dusk, whose standards were high because they ate what they worked for. She was learning fast that food on a ranch had to fill not just the stomach, but the heart too. Wyatt Kane observed quietly from the doorway. Clara noticed him, but she didn't let herself fidget. She had learned to carry herself with calm, even when his piercing gaze seemed to weigh every action. His expression was still unreadable, but there was a faint softness around his eyes when he watched her interact with the ranch hands. He had always been a man of few words, and praise was rarer than rain in the summer. But Clara felt a small satisfaction knowing she had earned at least a bit of his attention. After breakfast, Clara's day expanded. She had to help with lunch, ensure everyone had snacks for the field, and prepare dinner. There were times when she felt overwhelmed. Pots boiled over, bread didn't rise, and sometimes the ranch hands argued about who was supposed to do which chore. But Clara discovered that her strength lay not just in cooking, but in organizing. She asked questions, listened carefully, and learned each person's preference. Soon, everyone seemed to know her rhythm, and they adapted to her as she adapted to them. By midweek, Clara began exploring the ranch beyond the kitchen. She walked the fields with Wyatt, helping to check fences, feed animals, and understand the vastness of the land. She had expected the ranch to be beautiful, but it was more than that. The sun over the wheat fields, the gentle sway of tall grass, and the quiet of early mornings held a kind of magic she hadn't known existed. Clara found herself breathing more easily here than she had in years, the land soothing her nerves like a soft blanket. Wyatt spoke little, but when he did, his words carried weight. "You're doing well, Clara," he said one afternoon as they mended a fence together. "Most people wouldn't last 2 days here. You've lasted 5, and you're learning more every day. That tells me something about your mind." Clara felt warmth rise in her cheeks. "Thank you, sir. I just try to do my best." "Too," he nodded, then turned his attention back to the fence. Clara understood that, for Wyatt, respect wasn't given lightly. It was earned through consistent effort, intelligence, and patience. She thought about that as she worked, feeling proud that she had earned some of it already. The ranch hands had started teasing Clara in a friendly way, testing her sense of humor. They called her Chef Clara, and made playful bets about who could finish their meals fastest. She joined in with laughter, learning the small ways that people bond when life is hard but spirits are willing. For the first time in her life, Clara felt that she belonged somewhere. The kitchen wasn't just a place to cook. It was a place to connect, to be part of a team, to matter. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the distant hills, Clara tried a new dessert she had thought of, a baked apple and honey tart with a twist of cinnamon and a sprinkling of crushed nuts. She prepared it carefully, imagining the faces of the ranch hands when they tasted it. When the first bite was taken, the men paused. Then came the smiles, the murmurs of approval, and the gentle teasing about who would get the biggest piece. Even Wyatt tried a small bite. He chewed slowly, then nodded once, almost imperceptibly. Clara felt a thrill of pride. That small nod was more important to her than any compliment she had ever received. But the week wasn't all smooth. One afternoon, a batch of bread failed completely. The loaves were hard and dry, the crust burnt despite her careful attention. Clara felt a surge of frustration. She had worked so hard, and now it seemed like all her effort was undone. Wyatt noticed her disappointment. "Bread happens," he said calmly. "Even the best chefs fail sometimes. What matters is how you handle it." You fix it. You learn. You move on. Clara took a deep breath. He was right. She remade the bread, trying a different method she had read about in a cooking book long ago. The second attempt was far better, and the ranch hands cheered as they bit into the warm, soft loaves. Clara realized that mistakes weren't failures, they were lessons. By the sixth day, Clara had grown into her role. She knew the preferences of each ranch hand. She could anticipate Wyatt's requests before he even spoke, and she had earned a place in the ranch rhythm. She no longer felt like an outsider looking in. She was part of the ranch now, a vital piece of its daily life. That night, she decided to prepare something special for everyone. She wanted a feast that celebrated the end of her trial, and perhaps a subtle way to show Wyatt what she could do. She baked bread with herbs from the garden, roasted vegetables with honey and spices, and prepared a sweet tart she had been experimenting with for days. The kitchen was filled with the rich, comforting smells of home, hard work, and care. The ranch hands gathered in the dining room, eyes wide with anticipation. Clara served each dish carefully, watching as they took their first bites. Murmurs of delight filled the air. Laughter followed. The ranch hands clapped each other on the back, praised the food, and joked with Clara about the next meal. For the first time, Clara felt completely at ease. She had won their respect. Wyatt entered quietly, observing from the doorway. Clara's heart beat faster. She had worked hard, and now, for a brief moment, she wondered if her efforts would be recognized. He tasted the tart, chewed slowly, and then nodded. Not a word, just a nod. But to Clara, it felt like the highest praise. "You've done well," he said finally. His voice was quiet, but firm. "Better than I expected. You have skill, patience, and the kind of mind that can handle this ranch. Most people wouldn't last a week. You've lasted one, and you've earned my respect." Clara felt a lump in her throat. All the effort, the nerves, the mistakes, the successes they had led to this. She had proven herself not just to Wyatt, but to herself. She had faced one of the biggest challenges of her life, and had come out stronger. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. "I won't let you down." Wyatt's expression softened ever so slightly. "I don't expect perfection. I expect effort, intelligence, and heart. You've shown all three. That's enough for me for now." As Clara cleaned the kitchen that night, she looked around at the empty plates, the shining counters, and the small notes of thanks left by the ranch hands. She realized that the trial was more than just a test of her cooking. It had been a lesson in patience, organization, and the quiet power of determination. She had learned to work with others, to adapt, and to believe in her own abilities. And she had begun to understand Wyatt Kane, not just the wealthy rancher with a reputation for being hard to please, but the man who valued skill, intelligence, and heart above all else. Clara smiled to herself. She had survived the trial, gained respect, and found a place she could belong. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The real challenge, proving she could thrive on the ranch, win the trust of the community, and maybe even touch Wyatt Kane's heart, was still ahead. As the stars appeared over the vast fields, Clara felt a sense of peace. She had faced the first week, and she had won. The week had tested her courage, her skill, and her spirit, and she had discovered something even more important. She was stronger than she had ever believed. Tomorrow, the real journey would begin. The morning sun spilled over Cedar Creek like a golden blanket, warming the fields and the small town that bordered the Kane Ranch. Clara Bell stepped outside the kitchen, her apron still dusted with flour and cinnamon, and took a deep breath of the crisp morning air. Life on the ranch had started to feel like home, and yet, she knew that the real challenge had only just begun. For a week, Clara had impressed Wyatt Kane and earned the respect of the ranch hands. But townsfolk, as small-town rumors often went, had not all been as welcoming. Whispers followed her through the streets of Cedar Creek. She's trying too hard. No, rancher marries a fat girl. Who does she think she is? Cooking for Cane Ranch. Clara had tried to ignore them. She focused on the kitchen, the meals, and the rhythm of ranch life. But that morning, as she walked into town to buy supplies, the whispers followed her like shadows. A group of women at the market smiled politely, but then exchanged quick, sharp glances as she passed. One muttered just loud enough for Clara to hear, "They don't marry fat girls, sir. Not someone like her." Clara's cheeks warmed, and for a moment, she felt the old sting of doubt. She had fought for respect all her life, but these words reminded her that not everyone would see her worth. She clenched her hands at her sides and kept walking, telling herself that she didn't need their approval. She had already won a week at Cane Ranch. She had earned Wyatt Kane's respect. That was what mattered. When she returned to the ranch, she was quiet at first, methodically arranging ingredients and preparing breakfast. The ranch hands noticed her subdued mood, but gave her space. Wyatt, as usual, observed in silence from the doorway. Finally, Clara spoke up. "I overheard people in town," she admitted, trying to keep her voice steady. They don't think I belong here." Wyatt leaned against the doorframe, his expression unreadable. "People will always have opinions," he said. "What matters is what you do with yours. Do you let them define you? Or do you define yourself?" Clara looked up at him, surprised by his words. There was no judgment in his tone, only clarity. I'm trying," she said softly. "You are trying," Wyatt replied. "And so far, you've done more than most would even attempt. Don't let small minds weigh you down." Clara nodded, feeling a flicker of courage. Wyatt Kane didn't just value skill. He valued strength of character, determination, and resilience. That was something no whisper could take away. The day passed with a busy rhythm. Clara cooked, organized, and learned more about the ranch hands' routines. She discovered small joys. The way they laughed when she added a little extra spice to a dish. The way they helped each other during chores. And the quiet pride they showed in working together. These moments reminded Clara why she loved cooking, not just for herself, but to bring happiness to others. By evening, she was preparing dinner when one of the ranch hands, Tom, approached her cautiously. "Clara, there's a cooking contest in town next week," he said. "I think you should enter." Clara paused, her hands on the rolling pin. A cooking contest? She had never competed before. She had always cooked to feed people, to share, to bring joy, not to win prizes. Yet the idea stirred something inside her, a chance to prove herself not just to the ranch, but to the entire town. I don't know," she said. "What if they laugh at me?" "They won't," Tom said firmly. "Not after what you've done here. You've earned respect on this ranch. It's time others see what we already know." Clara considered it. The contest could be her opportunity to change how the town saw her, not just as a fat girl or an outsider, but as someone capable, talented, and confident. She nodded slowly. "I'll enter," she said, a spark of determination in her eyes. Wyatt had been listening quietly from the doorway. "A contest," he said. "You think you're ready for that?" "I want to try," Clara replied. "I want to show the town that I can do more than they expect." Wyatt studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Then you'll have my support," he said. "And my advice. Focus on your strengths. Don't let them distract you with their doubts." Clara smiled, feeling the warmth of his confidence. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was facing the challenge alone. She had the ranch hands, and even Wyatt quietly, unexpectedly, supporting her. The next days were a whirlwind of preparation. Clara experimented with recipes, tested flavors, and practiced her presentation. She worked long hours in the ranch kitchen, often late into the evening, perfecting every detail. She wanted her dishes to reflect her heart, her creativity, and her resilience. Yet, Even with her confidence growing, the whispers from town still lingered. One afternoon, as she walked past the bakery, a woman called out, "Don't waste your time, girl. Cane Ranch isn't for people like you." Clara's hands trembled, but she squared her shoulders. She didn't answer. She walked on, focusing on the ingredients she had to buy. Every step reminded her that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was moving forward despite it. The contest day arrived. The town square buzzed with activity. Stalls lined the streets, and the air smelled of sugar, spice, and excitement. Clara carried her carefully prepared dishes, her heart pounding with anticipation. She saw familiar faces from the ranch, cheering silently in the crowd. Wyatt Kane was there too, standing at the edge of the square, calm but watchful. His presence steadied her nerves. Clara set up her station, laying out her ingredients and utensils with precision. She focused on the task ahead, blocking out the murmurs and whispers from the crowd. Competitors glanced at her, some with curiosity, others with quiet skepticism, but Clara ignored them. She had worked too hard to let doubt shake her now. When the contest began, Clara moved with confidence. She chopped, stirred, and baked, her hands steady and her mind clear. The judges observed silently, taking notes, but Clara didn't think about them. She thought about flavor, presentation, and the joy her food could bring. She thought about the ranch hands waiting for her stories later, about Wyatt Kane's quiet nod of approval, and about herself finally seeing what she was capable of. As the final moments approached, Clara completed her dishes and presented them to the judges. The aroma, colors, and careful arrangement spoke volumes. The judges tasted, paused, and then smiled. Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. Clara's heart swelled with pride. Wyatt stepped closer, watching silently. He didn't need to say anything, the look in his eyes was enough. He was impressed, and Clara knew it, not just because she had cooked well, but because she had done so with confidence, creativity, and heart. When the winners were announced, Clara didn't hear her name at first. But then, the judges called out her dishes as a standout. The crowd cheered, and Clara felt a rush of exhilaration. She had proven herself not just to the ranch, but to the town, to the skeptics, and to herself. After the contest, Clara walked back to Cane Ranch, tired but glowing with accomplishment. Wyatt met her at the edge of the field, his usual calm expression softened by a small smile. "You did well," he said simply. "Better than I imagined. You've shown talent, patience, and courage. The town might have doubted you, but you've earned their respect now." Clara's chest swelled with pride. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. "I couldn't have done it without everything I learned here." Wyatt nodded. "Remember this feeling. This is what comes when you trust yourself, when you work hard, when you refuse to let the world define you." Clara smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond pride. She had faced gossip, prejudice, and self-doubt, and she had triumphed. She had shown that her value wasn't in her appearance, but in her heart, her skills, and her determination. That night, Clara sat by the fire in the ranch kitchen, reflecting on the week. The contest had been a turning point. She realized that she was no longer just trying to belong, she was thriving. The whispers of doubt no longer had power over her. She had learned to rise above, to work hard, and to trust herself. And as she looked out over the dark fields, dotted with stars, she felt a quiet sense of victory. This was just the beginning of her journey. But she knew one thing for certain. She had the courage, the talent, and the heart to face whatever came next. Tomorrow, she would continue her life at Cane Ranch, strengthen her skills, and deepen the bonds she had formed. But tonight, she allowed herself a moment to smile, to savor the triumph, and to feel truly proud of who she had become. Clara Bell had faced misunderstanding and doubt, and she had won. The morning sun stretched across Cane Ranch, casting long shadows over the fields. Clara Bell woke early, her mind buzzing with excitement and a little nervousness. Today was the day of the town's grand cooking contest. The same one she had prepared for in secret over the past week. But now it wasn't just about cooking, it was about proving herself to the wider community. She tied her apron and went to the kitchen. The smells of fresh bread, sweet honey, and roasted vegetables filled the room. Clara smiled to herself. She had practiced these recipes countless times. But today, she needed to be perfect. Not for Wyatt Kane, not for the ranch hands, but for herself and for the town that had doubted her. The ranch hands gathered around her, cheering quietly. Tom, the friendly young man who had encouraged her to enter the contest, clapped her on the shoulder. "You're going to wow them all," he said. "Just remember, cook from your heart. That's what makes your dishes special." So, Clara nodded, feeling the warmth of their support. She had learned over the past week that connection was as important as skill. Cooking wasn't just about recipes, it was about bringing people together, sharing joy, and showing who you truly were. Wyatt Kane appeared in the doorway, his usual calm presence grounding her. He didn't offer advice, but his eyes held a hint of pride. "Do your best," he said simply. "Nothing else matters." Clara smiled. "I will, sir." When she arrived at the town square, the contest was already buzzing with energy. Stalls lined the streets, and townsfolk gathered around to see the participants. Clara carried her carefully prepared ingredients, taking in the sights and sounds. Other competitors glanced at her curiously, some with polite smiles, others with quiet skepticism, but Clara didn't let herself feel intimidated. She had survived the ranch, earned respect, and proven herself before. Now, she could do it again. Her station was set up with precision. Clara arranged her ingredients neatly, laid out her utensils, and began. She chopped, stirred, and seasoned with care, focusing on flavors she had perfected in the Kane Ranch kitchen. She prepared a roasted vegetable medley with herbs, a honey-glazed bread, and her signature dessert, the apple and cinnamon tart that had won over Wyatt's quiet approval. As she worked, Clara noticed the crowd watching. Whispers circulated, some curious, some doubtful. But she blocked them out, focusing on the rhythm she had developed over the past week. Each movement was precise, confident, and filled with heart. The judges walked around, observing silently. Clara felt a small flutter of nerves but reminded herself of everything she had learned. Mistakes were part of growth, and effort was as important as perfection. She smiled to herself as she plated the dishes, thinking about the ranch hands cheering for her, Wyatt Kane's approving nod, and the confidence she had built within herself. When the tasting began, the judges paused at her table. Clara held her breath as they sampled each dish. Murmurs of approval followed. The roasted vegetables were perfectly tender. The bread was light and sweet, and the tart had the perfect balance of flavor and presentation. The judges whispered to each other, clearly impressed. Clara felt a rush of pride. She had done it not for recognition, but to show that skill, heart, and determination could overcome doubt. She looked up and saw Wyatt Kane standing at the edge of the crowd. His expression was calm, but she caught the faintest smile. That alone was worth more than any trophy. As the contest ended, the judges announced the standout dishes. Clara's creations were praised as innovative, flavorful, and heartfelt. The crowd cheered. Clara's heart swelled with joy. She had not only cooked well, but she had captured the essence of who she was: determined, creative, and resilient. After the contest, Clara was approached by a woman from the town council. "Miss Bell, your dishes were extraordinary. We'd like to offer you an opportunity to open a culinary school here in Cedar Creek. You could teach others your skills and share your talent with the community." Clara's eyes widened. A culinary school? She had never imagined such an opportunity. This was bigger than she had hoped. A chance to make a real impact. Yet, at the same time, it posed a dilemma. Kane Ranch had become her home. She had learned to belong here, earned the respect of Wyatt Kane, and built bonds with the ranch hands. Could she leave all of that behind to pursue a new dream? She walked back to the ranch that evening, thinking about the offer. The sun dipped behind the hills, casting a warm glow over the fields. Clara knew that whatever decision she made would shape her future. She wanted to follow her dream, but she also wanted to stay where she had found acceptance, friendship, and perhaps even love. Wyatt met her at the edge of the fields. He had been observing her thoughts quietly, as he often did. "The contest went well," he said. "I hope you're proud." "I am, sir," Clara replied. "But they've offered me a chance to open a culinary school in town. I don't know what to do. I want to stay here, but this is a big opportunity." Wyatt considered her words carefully. "Clara, opportunities come in many forms. What matters is that you make a choice that honors both your dreams and your heart. You don't have to give up one for the other, you just have to find a way to balance them." Clara looked at him, amazed by his wisdom. He didn't tell her what to do. He guided her to find her own answer. "You're right," she said. "I don't have to choose between staying here and following my dream. There must be a way to do both." The next days were filled with planning. Clara spoke with the council about the culinary school, exploring the possibilities. She realized that she could manage the ranch kitchen while teaching classes in the town. She could combine her love for cooking, her sense of community, and her growing confidence. Meanwhile, life on the ranch continued. Clara strengthened her bonds with the ranch hands, learned new techniques for cooking in large quantities, and developed systems to make kitchen life more efficient. She discovered that organizing and teaching others brought her as much joy as cooking itself. And Wyatt Kane continued to observe her progress, quietly proud of her resilience and intelligence. One evening, after a long day of preparing meals and planning lessons, Clara sat by the fire with Wyatt. The ranch hands had gone to bed, leaving the two of them alone. She looked at him, feeling a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. "Sir," she said softly, "I never imagined I'd find a place where people see me for who I am. Here, I feel like I belong. And now, this opportunity in town, I think I can do both. I can stay and help the ranch, and I can share what I've learned with others." Wyatt studied her for a moment, then nodded. "That's a wise decision," he said. "It takes courage to follow your dreams without leaving behind what matters to you. You've grown stronger in ways you might not even realize." Clara smiled, feeling warmth in her chest. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like an outsider. She had proven herself to the ranch, to the town, and most importantly, to herself. She had faced doubt, prejudice, and challenges, and she had triumphed. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Clara balanced life at Kane Ranch with her new responsibilities in town. She taught cooking classes, inspired others with her creativity, and continued to innovate in the ranch kitchen. The ranch hands admired her even more, seeing her grow into a leader and mentor. And Wyatt Kane, he remained quietly supportive, his respect for her deepening every day. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, Clara stood on the porch of the ranch house, looking out at the golden light. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from whispered insults in town to acceptance, respect, and the chance to make a real difference. She felt proud, strong, and ready for whatever came next. Clara realized that she didn't have to choose between dreams and belonging. She could have both. She could share her talents, inspire others, and remain part of the ranch that had become her home. And as she watched the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky, she knew that the best was yet to come, because Clara Bell had discovered something powerful. When you trust yourself, work hard, and follow your heart, you can transform not only your own life, but the lives of those around you. And on Kane Ranch, with the town of Cedar Creek watching and supporting her, Clara's story was just beginning. The sun rose slowly over Kane Ranch, painting the fields in soft gold. Clara Bell stepped outside, taking a deep breath of the crisp morning air. Life on the ranch had become routine, but no longer ordinary. Every morning brought new challenges, new lessons, and new joys. And today, she felt a quiet sense of anticipation. The culinary school in town had opened its doors the previous week. Clara had taught her first class, guiding eager students through recipes, techniques, and the lessons she had learned from years of cooking and her week-long trial on the ranch. The class had been a success. Students left with smiles, praising her creativity and encouragement, yet Clara's heart remained tethered to Cane Ranch. She loved teaching, but she also loved the life she had built there. She realized that she didn't have to choose between the two. She could balance her dreams and her home. Wyatt Cane appeared at the kitchen doorway, as he often did. His calm, steady presence gave her a sense of comfort. "Morning, Clara," he said simply. "Good morning, sir," she replied, smiling. "I just returned from town. The students were amazing today. I think they're really learning to love cooking, not just follow instructions." Wyatt nodded. "I don't doubt it. You have a gift for inspiring people." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest. Wyatt Cane had always been quiet in his praise, but it mattered even more because it was genuine. She had learned that respect and acknowledgement from someone like him were not given lightly, they were earned. The day passed with its usual rhythm. Clara cooked breakfast for the ranch hands, prepared ingredients for lunch, and planned dishes for the evening. She moved through the kitchen with confidence, each step deliberate, each gesture purposeful. The ranch hands teased her gently, admired her skill, and even helped with small tasks. They had come to see her not just as a cook, but as a leader, a teacher, and a friend. As she washed the dishes after lunch, Clara thought about the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the whispers in town, the doubt, and the fear that had gnawed at her heart. She remembered Wyatt Cane's challenge, the long week of work, and the moments of triumph and failure that had tested her patience and strength. And she realized something important. It was not her appearance, but her heart, her determination, and her creativity that had transformed her life. That evening, Clara prepared a special dinner for the ranch, a celebration of the progress they had all made together. She roasted vegetables with herbs, baked bread with honey glaze, and prepared her signature apple and cinnamon tart. As the ranch hands gathered, their laughter and chatter filled the kitchen, reminding her why she loved this life. Wyatt Cane arrived quietly, observing the scene. Clara noticed the subtle changes in him, the way he leaned slightly forward to watch the cooking, the small smile that appeared when a ranch hand praised her work. He had always been reserved, but now she saw a gentleness in his eyes, a hint of pride that went beyond words. After the meal, the ranch hands began cleaning up, and Clara sat with Wyatt on the porch, looking out at the vast fields bathed in the orange glow of sunset. Silence settled between them, comfortable and warm. "Clara," Wyatt said finally, breaking the quiet, "I've been watching you for weeks now, not just how you cook, but how you carry yourself, how you face challenges, how you inspire others. You've grown in ways most people could never imagine." Clara felt a lump in her throat. She had hoped he was proud, but hearing him say it aloud made her heart swell. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. I couldn't have done it without your guidance and the support of everyone here." Wyatt looked at her, his dark eyes serious but kind. "It's more than guidance. You've shown courage, determination, and heart. Those are rare qualities. And Clara, you've made this ranch better simply by being here." Clara's cheeks warmed, and she looked down at her hands. "I never thought I'd belong anywhere like this. I never imagined anyone would see me for who I truly am." Wyatt reached out and gently lifted her chin, meeting her gaze. "I do," he said quietly. "I see you, Clara. All of you. Your talent, your strength, your heart. And I admire it more than words can say." Clara's breath caught. She had hoped for connection, for respect, maybe even for admiration, but hearing it from Wyatt Cane felt like the culmination of every struggle, every challenge, every long hour in the kitchen. "Sir, she began, but words failed her. Wyatt smiled softly, understanding. He didn't rush her. He simply waited, letting her heart and mind catch up to the truth they both felt. Finally, Clara spoke, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've found a place here. I've found a life I love. And I think I'm ready to accept it fully. Not just the work, but everything that comes with it." Wyatt's smile deepened. "Good," he said, "because I want you to be here. Not just on the ranch, but in my life. I've waited a long time to meet someone like you, Clara Bell, and I don't want to wait any longer." Clara's heart leapt. She had never imagined a moment like this one, filled with warmth, respect, and genuine affection. "Wyatt Kane. He chuckled softly, the sound low and genuine. "You don't need to say anything. I think we both know." The days that followed were filled with a quiet, joyful rhythm. Clara balanced her life between the ranch and her culinary school, teaching eager students in town while continuing to innovate in the ranch kitchen. The ranch hands admired her even more, seeing her as a leader and mentor. Wyatt Kane, ever steady, supported her quietly but fully, respecting her independence while sharing a growing bond of trust and affection. One afternoon, Clara walked through the fields, observing the beauty of the land. The wheat swayed gently in the breeze. The sky stretched endlessly above, and the ranch came alive with movement and sound. She realized that this was home, not just a place, but a feeling. A place where she was valued, respected, and loved. Wyatt joined her quietly, walking alongside her. "You've done more than I imagined possible," he said. "Not just with cooking, but with people. You've changed lives here, Clara, including mine." Clara smiled, feeling the weight of his words. "I've changed because I finally found a place where I belong, and because I finally believed in myself." They walked in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The ranch was alive with warmth, laughter, and the quiet satisfaction of a hard day well spent. Clara felt a deep sense of peace. She had faced doubt, misunderstanding, and challenge, and she had emerged stronger, confident, and fulfilled. That night, the ranch celebrated with a small feast. The kitchen was filled with warmth, the tables with laughter, and the fields with the soft glow of lanterns. Clara moved among the ranch hands, smiling, serving, and sharing stories. Wyatt watched from a distance, proud and quietly joyful. He had seen Clara grow, and he had seen the difference she had made, not just with her cooking, but with her heart and determination. As the evening came to a close, Clara stood on the porch of the ranch house, looking out at the stars. She thought about how far she had come from whispered insults in town to a place of respect, belonging, and love. She realized that her journey had been about more than cooking. It had been about courage, determination, and trusting herself. Wyatt joined her, standing quietly at her side. "You've done more than survive," he said. "You've thrived. You've shown what it means to be strong, creative, and kind. And you've reminded me that the greatest value is in the heart and mind, not appearances." Clara leaned slightly into him, feeling a sense of warmth and contentment she had never known. "I've learned that, too," she said softly. "I've learned to trust myself, and to find strength in what I love." Wyatt nodded, his hand brushing hers gently. "And I'm glad you're here to stay, to teach, to grow, and to be part of my life." Clara's heart swelled. She had come to Kane Ranch seeking respect and belonging. She had found that, and more. She had found opportunity, friendship, admiration, and love, and she knew that her journey had only just begun. The stars twinkled above, the fields stretched endlessly, and Kane Ranch stood as a testament to hard work, perseverance, and heart. Clara Bell had transformed her life, not through force or defiance, but through skill, courage, and kindness. She had proven that strength, determination, and belief in oneself could overcome doubt, prejudice, and fear. And as she stood beside Wyatt Kane, feeling the cool night breeze on her face, Clara knew one thing for certain. She had arrived. She belonged here, and she had created a life filled with purpose, joy, and love. Her story was no longer about proving herself. It was about thriving, inspiring others, and living fully. And on Kane Ranch, with the town of Cedar Creek cheering her on, Clara Bell had found her ultimate triumph.